runners and walkers, I am so pumped to share the next Run Your Story, featuring none other than the man himself, Mr. James Contratto. And guys, you are in for a treat. James shares not only his run story, but the battle for his life, and even his training plan and go-to nutrition for race day. And some of the very cool running adventures he's had, even on his honeymoon. I am sure you guys will get a kick out of his fun facts. I know I did. So, here's James and his Run Your Story. Well, guys, super excited to have the famous and legendary James Contratto that's here today. So thanks, James, for coming.
Thank you for those titles. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. We can also go with Speedster, our own personal flash. Like, we can keep it going if you want.
Hey, I mean, whatever comes to mind, I appreciate all that.
That's awesome. No, it is such a treat to have you. So let's go ahead and get started. What is your run story? What got James running?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so that you have to kind of go back a little further back when freshman Contratto in high school. I took a summer PE class just to get the PE credits out of the way over the summer, and I was never really good at a lot of other sports or anything too, but I did enjoy running, and it was like, yeah, it's all right, I can do this. But what caught my coach's eye is that my PE coach was also the cross country and track coach.
Oh, what are the odds?
Yeah, and for the class we had to run laps.
Okay.
And we had to do a certain amount of laps to actually make a grade. And if we did any less, then we get points taken off. But any more than we did, we could get extra credit for. And so I think at the minimum at the time, it was only like 4 laps.
Okay.
I think, and then like as it progressed, it went to 4, 5, and 6. But got my 4 laps done in about, it wasn't too fast or anything at the time. So like, yeah, I was just jogging that like 10, 11 minutes-ish. But then it was like a 40-minute period. So I just like jogged the rest of it or walked with some of the other ones. So I was doing like 8, 9, 10 laps at a time.
Wow.
And I laughed because I could probably fail everything else in that PE class, but made up all the extra credit points from running.
That's
And
awesome.
my coach, Coach Stamper, he took me aside and said, "Hey, you're doing all these laps and you're doing all these things. You ever thought about trying out for cross country?" And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" I mean, I planned on doing track just to give that a go. But he's like, well, cross country is a little bit different. It's longer distance, and you run over trails, and you run on golf courses and things like that. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. And from there, I joined the cross country team and really felt a good connection to my teammates. And I wasn't doing the greatest at the time. I mean, I was just starting out, so I think my first race was like 25, 26 minutes, and I was using just a pair of $20 Reeboks that you get the G section of Target or Walmart or whatever you had at the time. And I was just wearing just random shorts that I think my mom made at the time too. So I wasn't really like prepared for a lot of those things. But I tried it and just kept with it. And, we were running all over the place in downtown Orlando, or not downtown, but just outside of Orlando, just running all over there. So that's where our high school was located. But we had a great community, and I just kept with it. And I had a plan, I had goals. I wasn't doing the greatest, but I was like, okay, I'm starting to see results with every mile that I'm doing and with every race that I'm doing. So I kept up with that. And I ended up running cross country and track for all 4 years of high school. In the middle of my sophomore year, the best time to move a kid, we moved from Orlando up to the Panhandle in Niceville.
Okay.
And joined up with that track and cross country team. And again, had a blast with them, built a great community, and really helped with my love of running, and really helped keep me involved in high school too, because high school's tough. And and the only reason why I kept my grades up was to stay eligible to run my races. Because there was a few times where I wasn't keeping my grades up, and my parents threatened, if you don't get this test up, then you're not going to run your race. And I'm like, oh, well, I better get my test going. So
that is incredible.
Yeah. Well, fast forward, after I graduated high school in '99, I didn't run in college.
Okay.
I thought about it, but I wasn't one of the fastest people on the team. I was mostly on the bubble of the top 10. We had some stacked people in our high school. I mean, we had a lot of our guys were running 15-minute 5Ks, 16-minute 5Ks, and I was kind of on that bubble of like, I think 16:49 still holds my fastest 5K ever in lifetime. I will never get back to that. But even with that time, I was still like number 8, number 9 on the team. We were really stacked. So my coach never really worked with me on how to get offers, how to get looks from other colleges. So it really wasn't on my mind of if I was going to run in college. So I just said, you know what? I did my 4 years. I'm going to take a break. So I didn't really run competitively or seriously after I graduated high school. I did some things off and on here, ran the occasional 5K here and there, but didn't really take it seriously too much and kind of fell off the wagon because I thought my legs didn't hurt when I was eating, drinking beer, playing video games, doing any of that stuff. So I really didn't make it a priority to run or keep my health up or any of those things. Fast forward to 2008, I found out that I had cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so September 2008 was when I found out I had testicular cancer, and I had to go into surgery. And after I healed up, I had to get some chemo done. I went through 3 rounds of chemotherapy and really took a lot of my energy out of me and really didn't like this. It really affected me physically and mentally and just a lot of those things. At the same time, too, I was starting a new job.
That's a tad bit going on there.
And this is also during the time in 2008 that recession was going on, too. So all the things happening during that time. So it was... Again, I tried to get back and running here and there, but I really didn't make it a priority during that time. I tell you that because in 2012 was probably one of my roughest years that I've had. I just had a lot of depression I was going through and just not feeling the best. I was stressed out at work. Work was really, really wearing on me and being rough with just some of the environments that were happening there, my coworkers. My friends weren't there for me either, so I had a lot of strained relationships with them. I was in a relationship with a woman, and that wasn't going the greatest. In fact, it was kind of stressful to me, and it was just a bad relationship all around. Just not good on any sin of those things. So, again, it was just a rough year of just me feeling really bad and down and depressed and stressed and anxious. All those things just really felt terrible. I went home for Christmas break down to see my parents in Orlando, and I went to see my friends. I went to a wedding, but quite frankly, during those 2 weeks, I was probably sober 4 of those days. And because I was just on bender, drinking with my friends, and just partying and just going wild, so to speak. But I tell you that story because during one of the New Year's parties that I went to, we were at one of my friend's house, and they had medals of running up on their wall. And I was just like, oh, you run? Like, yeah. I mean, being that close to Orlando, had a lot of the Disney medals and had a lot of that and some other race things. And I was looking at that, I'm like, I used to do that. I want a wall full of medals. That'd be fun one day. But after that whole weekend, I was driving back up to Charlotte, and I just kept on thinking, it's like, yeah, you know what? I remember when I was the happiest, I was running.
Oh, wow.
When I was running and I was feeling good, that made me feel good. I wasn't stressed. I wasn't depressed. I had stresses, but I had a way to get it out. So I told myself on that drive home, it's like, you know what? I had cancer. I'm overweight. I'm not feeling good mentally. I was just not in a great space. I'm like, I'm going to start prioritizing running. Like 2013, that is when I'm going to start running. I didn't even go to a running store. I just went to a shoe station or something and bought a pair of Sauconys because that was the pair that I ran with back when I was in high school. Like, that was my favorite pair. So, yeah, Sauconys worked, threw them on, and I knew in the state that I was in and where I was, I couldn't just get up and just do a lot all at once. So I just told myself, okay, 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day. That's it. And I'm going to run Mondays, Wednesdays, Friday. I might take the weekends off, but at least I'm going to do 20 minutes 3 times a day. And I just did that for about a couple of weeks, and then it felt easy. I was like, this is feeling good. So now let's up it again. Let's do 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week, and that started getting easier. And then it became, okay, instead of time, let's do miles. So 3 miles a day, and maybe I'll throw something on the weekend too. And just doing that until it became easier. During that time too, I signed up for my first 5K in like 20 some odd years.
Wow.
One of the associations that I'm a part of, ACY, they do a conference 5K. And as I was doing the registration for the conference, it was asking me questions. Is it you that's coming? Do you want to sign up for these pre-conference activities? what are your dietary restrictions? Do you want to run the conference 5K? And I'm like, it's been a while since I've ran the 5K. Yeah, sure. Signed up for that, and I actually credit that race to help also spur me into running again too. And that felt good. That felt easy. I ran a couple local races in Charlotte too, and the times weren't pretty, but I mean, it was done, and it was great. And I got to meet other people on that too. 3 miles became 4 miles. I had another longer run, and I kept with it. I was consistent. I started feeling better. I felt like my time was balancing out because I told myself, all right, at work, I'm leaving at this time because I'm going to go running right after work. And I also signed up for my first 10K ever when I was in Charlotte. I'm like, okay, I've been doing these 5Ks. Well, there's a 10K going up. I've never done a 10K before. I'll sign up for that. And ran my first 10K ever in 2013. And again, wasn't pretty, but it felt good. And it was something to jump off on and really something to be proud of. Like, okay, I've reached that milestone, and I be consistent, keep with it. And I was like, okay, what's next? Well, naturally, I was like, well, there's a half marathon that's happening. One of Charlotte's big races is the Charlotte Thunder Road Marathon and Half Marathon.
Okay.
And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do the half marathon. I'm going to sign up, I'm going to get a training plan, and I'm going to do this. Looked up Hal Higdon's half marathon for beginners plan and followed that pretty well. November 2013, I ran my first half marathon ever.
That's incredible.
And so then, I just kept on. I just started seeing the results because my weight was getting lower, my headspace was better, I was feeling happier at work. People actually took notice of like, James, you look good, and you seem like you're in better spirits. And I felt like I was putting more energy into my health because I was like, I gotta get it all back together. Of course, I enjoyed the occasional beer or 5, but but still, at least I had something to balance it out. So it was really cool. And then the next year, in 2014, I was like, all right, maybe I take the leap and try to find a marathon to run. And so it was like, okay, and I ran and was looking up different races, and at the time, I saw that the lottery for the New York Marathon was out. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to throw my name in the lottery and just see what happens. And we all know it's very, very low likelihood to get selected in the New York Marathon lottery. I had a friend at the time who had tried 3 times and still didn't get in.
Oh, geez.
And I just remember I was sitting in one of my students' meetings. We were meeting with a bunch of my students, and one of my students was giving a report, and I noticed my phone beeped at me. And I just looked down at it just to see what the subject line was, because it could have been a spam message. I was just like, let's just glance over to see what it said. Glanced at it, and the subject line said, "We'll see you November 8th, or November 2nd, whatever it was." And I let out the biggest, holy crap! Like in the middle of a report. I felt bad for everything too. But they all cheered for me when they found out too, because they really had my back. And I'm like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just found out I got in on this and started training for my first marathon in 2014 for New York. So it was just very lucky in the lottery, and again, I loved it. It kept me going, and I'm also a stats nerd, so I kept a spreadsheet even from that first time in 2013. I'm like, I'm gonna keep up with my stats to log all my miles, and so right now I still have that spreadsheet that's going on to
get out of here.
So I log all my miles per month. I log all the races I ran, what place did I get, the distance, the time. I log the miles on the shoes, and then I have like a little corner of like where all the PRs are.
Wow.
And to this day, right now, as of November 11th, 2022, I have ran 8,894 miles total. So
that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. So
jeez.
I will hopefully reach. It looks like I'm going to reach mile 9,000 sometime in December. Yeah. So that's going to be pretty incredible. This will be the most miles I've ran in a month or in a year actually.
Wow.
And and that's what helps keep me going and all that too.
And you missed out something that you are avidly trying to qualify for Boston, right?
That's what this year's mission was. Yeah. So I had Boston on the brain for a long. I mean, that's everybody's dream, is to try to qualify or run that race. So this year I teamed up with a coach which is actually kind of funny how I got teamed up with them. Shout out to Cup of Tea Fitness. I think it was around December-ish. One of my old cross-country buddies, he was posting about them and saying, hey, check out my friends. They're run coaches, and they do a good job. And so I started following them, and they were doing a promotion of a like, share, comment on this post, and you could win a year worth of run coaching. So I did that, and I got selected. So I'm like, oh, wow. So, yeah, shout out to MD and Sam for that. And I told them what my goals were, and I've been working with them all year. And I was trying, at the time, I was thinking, I might marathon train later on, but actually at the beginning of this year, I was starting to feel really burnt out on running, and I almost thought about taking a step back from it.
Whoa.
Since I got this training with these coaches and a training plan, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And just to get myself back in the headspace, and I even worked with them on that too. It's like, hey, I'm not training for anything long right now. There's a few 5Ks that are coming up that I'd like to go really fast on. And I just want to get back into a routine and headspace and all that. So they gave me speed workouts to do. They gave me distance and timed runs to do. And they're not trying to push your time on you. They're saying, like, run on feel, run your best, run what feels natural to you.
Absolutely.
And don't worry about the time. The pace and the time doesn't matter. As long as you're giving it your best effort, you're going to be okay. And this year, I've been calling it PR season, because it seems like almost every race that I'm running, it's another PR that's going on. I ran the PR at the Jokane 5K. Then I ran a PR at I think it was the Azalea Trail. Yeah, Azalea Trail was ran this year. So I ran the Azalea Trail run 10K, got a PR. And then I PR'd a 5K again at the O Run earlier. So I got that one knocked off. And then I PR'd my half marathon this year too. So I'm updating that on my spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet's been updated.
Spreadsheet just keeps on getting updated. And, for the content, I will record it of me deleting it, playing Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, and just another one gone and another one gone. So
That's awesome.
And now we have marathons next. So if everything goes to plan, I will hopefully run a PR in all 4 of those major run categories.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's exciting. I'm really hoping that, looking at what those paces are, I used this last half marathon at the North Shore half just as a baseline of how fast am I going to do this half marathon? What does the time look like? And is achieving Boston obtainable at that point? And I was operating on all cylinders that run. And by the time I got to the halfway point of that run, it was just nothing but like, all right, I know I'm going to PR, but it's just going to be a matter of how much. And then how many bodies am I going to catch along the way? So passing people, body count, stack them in. And I was just burning and hit 132 for that half marathon.
Wow, that's
so I'm like, all right, it is obtainable. So I don't know if I'm going to do it or not, but I know it's within reach, and I hope that it's actually almost a month until I run the Kiowa Island Marathon in South Carolina.
Wow.
And hopefully use that as a Boston qualifier race.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, we'll definitely be rooting for you, because that's you have a huge following here in Mobile of people that are like, is James coming out? The second shift, like all of that.
Yep.
That is just huge. And then your story, I had no idea about any of that. I knew about the cancer, but prior to that, that's really all I knew. So that's huge. The fact that running not only physically but mentally as well, that's just a great story.
It just shows too, like what you can do to be consistent with it, and make sure that it's something that you enjoy doing too.
For sure, and the discipline that you did, like that's
right.
That's
Got
incredible.
Because those first couple of months, it's gonna suck. You're gonna get not injured, you're gonna get sore because you're using muscles and using legs and things that you haven't used in a long time. But it gets better. Like it will eventually improve, and you can run a 3-mile short run and feel great afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
sure.
it does get better as long as you just maintain consistency and not do too much too fast.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I did have a little bit of an itch to be like, all right, well, I'm going to run like 4 miles as soon as you get out the gate. But I told myself, nope, just do 20 minutes.
There you go.
Like, just keep it until you get better, because if you're injured, then you're on the shelf, and then that blows off your consistency.
There you go. Yeah, for sure.
So
with all of this, what is one of the lessons that you've learned from running?
I think biggest one is just trusting the process.
Ooh, yes. I love that. Yeah.
You gotta, run plans are out there for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't just jump on in and say, oh, I'm going to run a marathon like next month.
That's right.
It's like
Yeah.
you got to really have a build up. You really got to trust the training process. You also got to be able to give yourself some rest too.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do every workout hard. You can't do it all at race pace.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta build in some easy runs. You gotta use your speed workouts to focus on speed, and use your easy runs to just be easy to help with that recovery. So trusting that process, trusting the workouts, trusting whatever your training plan is telling you to do, and making sure that the training plan you're using is also within your limits.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's not, modify it a little bit. It's
go.
okay. It's your plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's your path. You can modify it however you want on that. Just be consistent. Don't do too much too fast. It really helped me learn how to balance as well as how I can help prioritize things too.
That's good.
Because it's easy in my field to work past 5. It's easy to say, okay, well, I'm going to work through lunch and not really take care of yourself. But being able to tell myself, I plan on running after work, and I'm going to do it at this time and go this route, really helped me balance and actually show that it's okay that you can take off early to go run, or you can, as long as you have that communication and you have a healthy work environment like that, you can balance your life and your health with everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
It's going to take sacrifice. You will have to give up on something.
Yeah.
But all it matters is what you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, you can also be your own worst critic when it comes to running, because
absolutely,
like I said, I appreciate people saying, "Oh, you're a legend." I'm like, "Oh, thanks," I appreciate that. But I can be very hard on myself when it comes to if I don't meet a goal, or if I don't meet a particular distance, or if I'm not where I wanted to be. But also realizing that what you're doing, people are taking notice, and you are inspiring, you are doing good things. So I think we can take that for all of us. It's like we can be our own worst critic, but that's the only people that's criticizing us is ourselves.
Absolutely,
it's not anybody else. So it doesn't matter how fast, how slow, if you're walk, run, or heck, if you're just walking the whole thing. People are still cheering for you.
That's right.
We have a great community here.
Oh, we do.
So I think just the running community in general, they're just accepting of everybody, and nobody's keeping time. Nobody's keeping track. And even the ones that are, because I know, like in front of the pack, we can be pretty competitive up there. But before the gun goes off, it's all right. Good luck.
Yeah.
And then we're going neck and neck. We're competing. We're jockeying for position. But then afterwards, all right, good job. Hey, that was awesome. And, oh man, you crushed it. There's no hard feelings. There's no dirtiness or anything. I think this is one of the very few sports that has that kind of community that's rooting for you no matter where you are.
Absolutely.
And how you're doing. So I think that's a huge lesson I've learned too. So.
I'm going to brag on you for a moment. So, and that is, speaking of the Go Run, you ran, but I had the honor of running with your very sweet wife.
Yes.
So this was her first time running, her first ever 5K race. But you went and you did your thing, you PR'd, but then you came back and you joined us, and you were just so supportive of her and just in her own journey. And I just was like, it was just so awesome to watch. And then you were like, okay, I'm going to run to the finish because I want to be there to take a picture of that finish line. And I just was like, Leigh, that is the sweetest thing. So kudos to you.
I was not going to miss the opportunity to run with my wife in her first 5K. I was not going to miss the opportunity. On the home turf of South Alabama, too, at that race. So the Go Run just means a lot to me, too. Because
absolutely.
It combines my two favorite activities, running and fighting cancer. That race is really, really dear to my heart. Her being able to sign up at the last minute, wanting to be a part of it, too, and watching her do it and complete it, and her just feeling all those emotions of, I just completed my first run, and to celebrate with her in the race and after the race and everything was awesome. So thank you.
That day, you guys both PR'd.
We did.
So.
Absolutely, it was a double PR.
That's
day.
right.
Yes,
absolutely,
yes.
It was so cool. So I just want to say kudos to you, because I know a lot of misconceptions that go on with people that are not, as you said, in our running community, that don't know how supportive it is. Because it's easy to look at the speedster and be like, wow, he's so fast. Like, I can never be that fast. And then to know that you took time not only to, as you said, congratulate others, but then also you came back. And I don't know, it really got to me. I was like, well, that was just incredible. Like, I already knew that about you, but I was like, wow, it was just so cool to see. So I thank you for letting me have the opportunity to see that. So
yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite highlights of running for sure was to walk that in with her. So
that was cool. So with all the races you've done, what has been your favorite race?
This one was a tough one because there's a lot of them that come to mind here. I'm gonna first say, because Leigh and I even talked about this. She's like, "You better say this one." I'm like, "Yes, it is in the top 3." So some people like to go relax on their honeymoon and just like do nothing. I was looking up races wherever we were going.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so we had the great opportunity to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon.
Oh, wow.
And Lee's uncle lives out there, and so he was helping us out with a lot of things, with all the sites and everything going on. Well, the dates that we were going, I was like, well, I'm going to find a race to run in this thing to see if there's anything happening.
Because why not in Hawaii?
Absolutely. And they did have a race, but it was different. It was called and if you've never heard one of these things, pretty much in Caden is a relay race where you can get up to 5 people and they run each segment of that race. And so it's a timed thing to see who can relay.
Okay.
I think it's like from a Japanese term and from when they were passing messages to one person to another during battle. That was how they would do it. And so this was a race that they did in Honolulu. But the stipulations were different because you had to have a minimum of 2-person team on this.
Okay.
And I don't know anybody there except for my uncle. He didn't run. So, but he worked with somebody who is just as crazy as all of us. He reached out to him and said, "Hey, my family's coming out here to Hawaii and he wants to run this race if you're interested." So he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I heard you're interested in this race. I'll run half if you want to run the other half." And I'm like, "Okay." And Lee's like, "What?" Just like you're gonna make us wake up early on our honeymoon to go do this? I'm like, "Yeah, when will be?"
That's right.
At the time, it was like, well, this could be one of the first opportunities and only opportunities I get to do this. So why not? So sure enough, we signed up as a team together.
Wow.
He ran the first half, and I ran the second half. And if you're familiar with Hawaii, we just pretty much he ran from downtown Honolulu up to Hanama Bay, and then I ran from Hanama Bay back down there, so past Diamond Head and all like along the coast. And I ran it exactly like you would run a half marathon on your honeymoon. I didn't care about time. I didn't do any of my pre-race stuff or anything too. I stopped along the way to take a whole bunch of pictures.
I was going to say, how scenic was that?
It was the most beautiful race I've ever ran.
Oh, I can imagine.
And just being able to go, just running downhill and getting to see mountains, oceans, city, and all that, and taking just pictures along the way of all that. And I also ran the biggest hill I've ever seen in my life on that one too, which was, that was crazy. It was very hilly. And being able to run that, and Leigh was also there to cheer it on as well. And so, first of all, thanks, Leigh, for humoring me on this. And she's like, okay, and ran them to that. And like I said, never met this dude before, but he was there to be like, oh yeah, I'll do this for you.
Wow.
Again, just speaks to our community of, hey, we're all runners, and we'll play and we'll do this and everything. So that was probably one of my favorite races and one of my favorite running memories was doing that one. A couple other ones that really, really stick out was the 1996 Metro JV meet when I was running in high school. Because again, I was on the bubble. Like I wasn't fast enough or depending on who was where. I mean, I was either number 6 or 7 on the team. We had some beasts going. Well, at the time for a Metro meet, I didn't make the cutoff, but I was still able to run the JV meet. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll run this race, and I'll run the best that I could. And one of my friends from a rival school was also running it too, because he was another bubble guy too. So we would always be neck and neck in our stuff. And so gun went off, and me, him, and another person were in pretty much the top 3. During that first mile. By a mile and a half, it was just me and Tarl. We're just going back and forth. And you heard, go, Tarl, go, James, go, the whole darn way. And then that last half mile, I'm like, all right, forget this. We ain't playing around. Hammer down. And I just kicked it in like my life depended on it.
Wow.
And that one stands out because that was the first and only race that I came in first place.
Oh, stop.
Ever. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So that one really, really stuck out to me and really was just like, holy cow, like I actually won a race. Like nobody in front of me, like everybody behind me was just like number one overall.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It was great. And the time was respectable too.
Mm-hmm.
So and honestly, I think in that race I probably would have beaten one of our other folks that was on varsity. So I was like, hey,
wow.
I had that the best I could. So.
Absolutely.
And then if anybody gets the opportunity to run the Chicago Marathon, it's a party.
Yeah.
It is probably one of the best marathon parties throughout the whole run. So that was also one of my favorite races that I've ran in a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's awesome. So you mentioned pre-race routines, but you didn't get to do on your honeymoon. But so what does a pre-race routine look like for you?
Yeah, so I get into a different headspace when I am on race day. I mean, there's just something different about race day. And I've done this, I've modified it a little bit, but I feel like I've done it pretty much almost since high school. But I wake up about 2.5 hours before the race begins, drink some coffee, like at least get 1 cup in me just to wake the brain up and to get things moving inside and, just try to get light, is what we'll say. And then a bowl of oatmeal.
Okay.
It's always a bowl of oatmeal. And let that settle, drink some waters, and do all that. Get to the race site. I'll do a 15-minute warm-up. I go through a pre-stretch routine, and I go through the whole stretches that I've just known. It's like muscle memory at this point.
Sure.
So just going in, stretching, warming up. And that's pretty much it. Nothing too fancy, but I think for me, it's more of that routine of wake up, drink coffee, eat something, like get some fluids in, get to the site, plenty of time because I hate fighting traffic. I hate, like Leigh will get on me sometimes. She's like, the race doesn't begin till this. Why do you got to be there an hour beforehand? Believe me, you got to get there an hour beforehand.
That's right.
I'm not fighting traffic and not getting time to warm up or not getting time to stretch. That will make me nervous and throw my head off. So
I love how you said it's nothing fancy, but yet you wake up 2 hours prior. So I would consider that a little on the fancy side. I love it though. That's great.
I appreciate that.
Do you have a favorite post race once you cross that finish line? What does it look like after that?
Beer.
Beer.
Get my post run recovery beer.
Okay.
But I'm probably not the poster child for recovery for that. I am, because typically after the run, I will go all out on my races, and I will, if I'm not passing out after the finish line, then I feel like I didn't do my job. So I will walk, catch my breath, and get up on that too. But I really don't cool down as much as I should. Okay. I don't stretch afterwards as much as I should. It's probably bad podcasting and race advice, but I'm not good at that. Okay. But I'll have the post-race celebration beer and some chocolate milk. Or I'll tell you what, though, after a long run, especially anything over 10 miles, and even after a long race, downing a whole thing of chocolate milk,
oh man, absolutely,
is gold. Some people are like, yeah, chocolate milk, and I'm like, believe me.
Yeah. That nice ice cold.
Good. Yeah. And it's thick enough that it's providing you substance.
That's right.
So it's not like water or anything.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
So what is a racing item or running item that you have to have? Like if you went for a run, you'd be like, sorry, I gotta go back home and get this because I forgot it.
I mean, I love my running watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, my Garmin is what keeps me honest, I will say.
Yeah.
And I'm a stats nerd. So I have to be able to know how long I'm running, so I can put that in my spreadsheet so I can keep up with all those stats and everything. And I used to just run with my phone. It was the Nike app at the time. Nike Run was the thing, and now it became Nike Plus, and not really the biggest fan of what it's turned into, but now it's all Strava. So
yeah.
But yeah, I usually have to have my running watch on me just so that I can keep up with the stats. Is what I typically have on that.
Dude, that's incredible.
I don't even need anything fancy on my watch either. I mean, even this Instinct, it has more stats than I really want. So, I mean, all I want to know is how far am I going, how fast am I running, how long does it take me to get there.
Yeah.
But this one's like, your heartbeat, your cadence, the weather, and your battery level. You don't know any of that stuff. It's not that. But yeah, I guess I like to have my stats on it.
I know that you're gonna love this next question, which is, what are your favorite running shoes? But you did mention the Sauconys, like back in high school, but
Sauconys were back in high school, and I feel like I was an early adopter of Sauconys back then too. Yeah. Everyone was like, oh, Nike, all Nike, everything. But I'm like, no, Team Saucony, it's pretty fantastic. I love them. But nowadays, I have been in my Ultras, the Ultra Escalantes, and I've been a fan of them for the past, ever since 2019. I was in Asics at one point. I was in Brooks for a little bit. I think I had a pair of New Balances at one point, which, they served their purpose. But ever since I transferred over to the Ultra Escalantes, it was a game changer. I was dealing with a Achilles injury for a little bit, and I would say once I transitioned to those, I felt it go away. And I don't know, I just feel natural when I'm running in them. They're light. They feel like really, really good. So that is my running shoe of choice, and I haven't gotten a different pair since. Yeah, and that's the one I like right there.
Nice. So we talked about your pre-race food and fueling. Is there anything that you take during? So your longer distance running, how do you fuel up during those?
Yeah, so I always do some goo at times. I'm starting to use UCAN is the latest. Aaron Friesmeier turned me on to those and said, hey, give this a try, because apparently that's supposed to use the natural fats that you already have to turn that into energy. So the caveat is don't eat sugar and don't take anything sugary while you're using it because it'll counteract it or something. So lately what I've been doing is I'll take some sugar-free Powerade or just a sugar-free drink, just because I like electrolytes. I feel like electrolytes are definitely necessary for these longer runs. I've been experimenting with that lately. But before then it was trying to do using goos and using that kind of stuff. I also tried some of the maple syrup packets at one point, which were pretty decent. But the past few times that I've used UCAN, I feel like it was a different energy level. And I feel like I was going longer I didn't feel like I needed to take one as often as I did with goos.
Nice, yeah.
And they went down easy. And it was an easy transition to run with it, down it, and keep it moving. So the next long run is going to be next week it's 22 miles on that. So I'm going to really try to experiment on that one. I'm starting to get a sense of, okay, how long can I go before I actually need to take one? I ran a 20 miler last, 2 weeks ago-ish, and I took 2 of them, and that got me through it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty impressive.
Sure, absolutely. So if somebody was starting out running, and they said, James, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's never ran? Or as we talked about, sometimes people have this misconception about the running community, but then they realize, as you said, how accepting and how, I think that's the thing that I love about the running community is everybody's like, oh, let me tell you about this new thing. As you said, you're like, hey, I've tried this out. Let me try this. And how many people have you told about this? Several. Yeah. So what is a piece of advice that you would give somebody that's new?
Be patient. You got to be patient with this process. I mean, it is a process. You have to trust it. Like I mentioned before, it takes time for you to really get going and to really build up a routine. And I think that is the toughest part for any new runner is that they don't get into a good routine. They take too much time off. They feel sore, and they're just wishy-washy on it. If you're not consistent with it, you're not going to progress, and you're not going to see the results, or your expectations of the results are not going to be there either. So you're going to be sore. You're going to hurt in places you didn't know it was going to hurt in a long time because you're getting stronger. You are using muscles, bones, and tendons that you haven't used in a long time, but they will soon get better. Talk to somebody professionally, too, so that they can recommend shoes. Don't go into shoe station, go to the clearance rack on running shoes. Get some shoes that are going to help you feel good and make it easier for you. Don't do too much too fast. Trust the process, and it'll take time. And even if you do, just find a basic running plan. There are so many running plans out there online. Absolutely. That way somebody doesn't have to make a huge investment in things. Couch to 5K, I know a lot of people who have done that, and it's worked wonders. So try and find something that meets your ability level, and use that as a way to give yourself some checklists and give yourself some kudos, and also just try to find what motivates you to keep on track. For me, it was, okay, I'm going to beat this time. I'm going to beat this much mileage. I'm going to try to see what it takes to get easier. That's what motivates me. For other people, it's the community. For other people, it's a chance to hang out with friends or just to get out of the house for a bit. So find what motivates you. And if it's not running that you're a fan of, just do something active. Do something to do that. And maybe you'll find your passion and really help find that release of stress and help making you happy.
Absolutely. For that 22 miler, will you put in music when you listen, or
a wireless runner?
A wireless runner. Okay.
I don't listen to music when I'm running. The only time I really listen to music is when I'm on a treadmill.
Okay.
So I used to run with music when I was first starting out because I thought, I need to have music to keep me motivated.
Sure.
I need to have that not get too much in my head, which works pretty fine. And I think there's a lot of people who do that, and that's what gets them going, and that's great, and I'm happy for that. For me, though, it was a couple of things. One, it was a safety thing. Because I didn't want to have to be too much in my head that I didn't know if a bike was coming to get me, or a dog was coming after, or traffic, or just anything like that. I mean, even sometimes when I'm running and I'm trying to pass another runner who has music on, and I'm trying to say on your left, they can't hear me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, darn, and then I just try to adjust from there. But to me, it's just more of, I like to be aware of my surroundings. I like to be aware of what noises are around, and for my own personal safety. The other piece, too, is I find that I can be more into my thoughts when I am running, too, when I don't run with music. So I will run, I'll think about, okay, if there's a hard conversation I have to have with somebody at work, I can go over in my head to literally process that.
Sure.
I can think about, okay, what are some things I need to do for the day? Or I'm about to go on this podcast, what do I want to talk about? So it gives me a time to really be reflective in myself and really think about to be in my own headspace as opposed to just having a lot of noise going on and I'm just going like that. But I mean, like I said, treadmill is a totally different story. I got to have something to distract me from that and everything too. So I do have like a running rampage mix that I have on my
okay, so you have to tell us what are some of the songs?
I like y'all. I mean, I'm very unconventional here, but I listen to a lot of metal and punk and all those things too. So Motorhead, Andrew WK, Iron Maiden. Let's see, Metallica's Master of Puppets, which I play. If I win the Masters division, I will Instagram that song over that too. So for those about to rock, Rush, my favorite band of all time, they actually have a song called Marathon, which is about the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow. Get out of here. Okay.
Yeah, so, Dropkick Murphys, Iron Maiden. I got a lot of random metal and punk that I listen to on that level. So
that's absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Like that's...
Yes. And in fact, it was funny too, because even during that half marathon, again, I don't run with music a lot, but when I ran the North Shore half marathon, I normally don't run with my phone, but this time I did just to have it on me and stuff. And then I had it in my pouch with all my fuels and stuff. So I'm like, it's not at least one less thing. So in the middle of that race, I'm like, I'm feeling something here. I really feel like I need a soundtrack right here. So I threw that thing on and even then, I just turned the volume up. I didn't have headphones in.
Everybody was
whatever. I mean, people probably heard some Metallica while I was approaching them and just going. So
it probably inspired others too. They're like, well, where's that music coming from?
So I turned it on during that one while I was finishing the last half of the race, and that was really helped me go and helped me motivate on getting another body count. So.
Do you have a mantra? So and there's a tough run, but you put in the miles, it's getting a little bit harder. Is there something, as you talked about being in the headspace, is there something that you tell yourself to get to that next step?
Back when I was going through cancer, I have a lot of smart aleck friends, and they're a bunch of jokers, and I love them to death. But there was a couple of my friends on a thread. They were saying like, "Hey James, we should throw a meatball and a spaghetti meatball or sausage and meatball fundraiser for you for your testicular cancer journey and stuff." And maybe we could sell bracelets while we're at it. And another one of my buddies piped in. He's like, you know what? I would totally wear a Rock Strong bracelet because for those that know me, everything's rocking, and I always tell people to keep rocking. I'm just all about rock. So he's like, I would totally wear a Rock Strong bracelet. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of fits. And so that has been like my mantra for life. Has been like, be rock strong. And when I was running the Chicago Marathon, I decided to make that a fundraiser race too. So I used that as a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. And as a part of my fundraising efforts, I said, okay, if you donate some money on this, whatever amount it's going to be, I'm going to send you a Rockstrong bracelet. So I had that as part of my fundraiser, and just my life mantra since 2008 has been pretty fantastic on that. And so along with that, in those times where it does feel hard, I just tell myself, hey, I survived cancer. I'll survive a marathon.
Hey.
Yeah, so that's what usually helps the whole thing.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you aren't running, what can we find James doing?
Love watching some college football.
Okay.
Yep, shout out to Florida State, who's actually having a great year this year. So I'm very happy of the progress we're doing this year. But I love watching some college football, love watching hockey. So you can also find me over the grill, grilling some burgers, wings, smoking some ribs, cooking some barbecue. So I love cooking in all of its forms and just really love doing that. Leigh and I love traveling. Mm-hmm. So whether it's going down to the beach or just going on a random adventure, we love to go travel and do that. So try to stay pretty active in all the things.
Sure. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what is a fun fact about you?
Yeah, so I own over 300 Pez dispensers.
What?
I have been collecting Pez dispensers since I was knee-high. I love collecting Pez dispensers.
Get out of here.
And so I have a collection in my office. Which is only a battalion of the Pez on me that I use. Leigh still doesn't understand it, but that's okay. And while I don't have all 300 of them displayed anywhere, I actually do have a rack of them that I have displayed in one of my rooms as like the greatest hits of Pez dispensers. On my groom's cake, I actually found a bride and groom Pez skit kit and put that on my groom's cake. And you have the sharing of the cake and everyone's eating the cake, and we toast with our champagne and stuff. Well, I said, well, you know what? How about we also have the sharing of the Pez? And Leigh gave me this look, but then the crowd didn't fail me and said, heck yeah, let's do this. And she was like, I'm on the spot now. I'm like, yep, got to do it now. And so she was such a trooper. We did a sharing of those Pez for the Pez dispensers. So, yes, that's probably one of my funner facts that I do.
So do you have a favorite Pez dispenser then?
I love Star Wars too. I still have some of my old school Star Wars Pez dispensers that I use. So I have my original Darth Vader one, my original Yoda one. So those are a couple of my favorite ones. I also have, I'm a huge hockey fan too, but we found that they actually made Pez dispensers with the Stanley Cup on them. And there was a set of 6 of them for the original 6 hockey teams that started the NHL. So I have those, and the Blackhawks are one of my favorite teams. So of course they have the Blackhawks on there.
Wow.
Those are also some of my favorite.
I would have never known that. Nor would I have known that Pez dispensers could have like 300 varieties.
Oh, there's more than that too. Oh my goodness. I've kind of fallen off a little bit on collecting them, but typically I'll get a new one every now and again too, because the student will see like my collection, be like, hey, I found this and thought, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. So I'll add it to the collection.
Oh wow.
And it doesn't matter if I have a double of it or not. Yeah. It's still I'll still add it, and I appreciate all the Pez dispensers that I either get that I find or that other people find for me too. So.
Dude, that is so cool. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, this has been such a treat. Like, so glad that we were able to sit down and chat, especially since you and Leigh are moving.
Yeah, we're moving to Charleston, South Carolina. And we're still grieving the process here. We really loved Mobile. Mm-hmm. We really loved it here. I'm going to miss a lot of my running friends and really miss the Mobile community a bit. But the job that I'm going to take over there is going to be an incredible opportunity as well. I'm going to be the Executive Director of Student Involvement with the College of Charleston. Of course, the first thing I look at is, okay, what are the races looking like? And they got races it seemed like they had races almost every weekend. So I'm like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And as we were looking for a place to live, I had Zillow on one tab, I had Google Maps on the other just to see how far it was from work, and then I had Strava up to see where the heat maps were. To be like, oh, there's some good heat map action happening on this area. So
I love how that was incorporated into the buying the house.
You best believe I made that a part of the process here. Right now we're moving into an apartment for a little bit so that we can find a place to live once we get there. When I moved there, we're driving up on Sunday. On that Sunday, I was supposed to do my long run, but we were going to spend that time driving. But I do have planned that Monday morning I'm going to wake up and I will do, within 24 hours of moving to Charleston, I'm going to do my 22 miler there in Charleston. So
wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Great way to explore. Then, all right, just gonna go run around and see what I can find here.
Yeah, for sure.
And they got some good running paths and a great
Sure.
greenway too, and it looks like they have a really good running community out there too,
Mm-hmm.
which is great that I was able to find a marathon during this time as well, because I was planning to run the Mississippi Gulf Coast race,
Yeah.
but it's just going to be too pricey for us to make it back down there, and I don't have the vacation and time to build up to take some time off in order to get that. But it just happened to work out that there's a marathon happening just south of us.
Wow.
So I'll run that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Like Mission BQ is still on track with the training plan.
That's right. Well, just know you have your running community here that is cheering for you, and you've made such an impact here. Of course, I just adore your wife, and then I've gotten to know you a little bit more. So thank you so much for this. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this and to share our story. I think the more these stories get out there, and knowing that we all come from these walks of life and our journeys are different, I hope to inspire folks to take up the sport and just know that running is truly for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, James.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what some great information that James shared. I've even been able to start using some of it for my own training. So huge shout out. Thank you, James. This was such a treat, guys, to speak with James because he has played such a great role in our running community. And James and your beautiful wife, we are going to miss you guys so big. Here at Run Your Story, every story needs to be heard, and I am so glad James got to share his. Now his story is a part of yours, just like it is now a part of mine. A huge shout out to VR Tech Services for all things editing, website, and techie when it comes to Run Your Story. So guys, go out and run your story.